Howdy, everyone. It's Imani and River from Haven Earth Trade School at the Haven Village in East Tennessee. And we're super excited to be getting on track with all of our live stream communications and bringing some of the forefront pioneers in natural building and homesteading into the conversation. So we are really excited to bring dear friend Simon and partner Arielle, who is now sleeping with the baby, who was just born. Congratulations, Simon, on being a new papa. We're so excited for you guys. And yeah, we're just excited about the partnership. We met you guys last spring. Well, we actually met you before that because you were down in Kingsbury where we were staying in Texas, building the Tiny Hemp Home. And we had you come and plaster the Tiny Hemp Home in the spring. And that's when we really got to know you and Arielle at a whole new level, and just found that the overlap of our passions for natural building, for healthy living, was right in line. And so it was just a great connection. Of course, we had to have you come back and do some repairs. And then we had to bring you guys to Tennessee to do even more repairs when we moved the Tiny Hemp Home. But I thought since Arielle wasn't on, I wanted to start with a little promo video, because when we were doing that hemping and the plastering of the Tiny Hemp Home, we decided to record it because there's been so many people looking to figure out how to do lime plaster. And you are an expert in the field, and we wanted to capture that. So we created an online course with both of you. And so we wanted to share a little promo video from that so people can get to see you guys. Let me see if I can make that happen here.
I've been passionate about the materials that we home our bodies in for a long time. I embarked on my journey towards sustainability and wellness as a sustainable fashion designer. I went off-grid 2 years ago and discovered natural building through this process. Simon and I met on a cob oven build and have built many cob and adobe and hemp structures since then. And I've really fallen in love with the art of lime plastering. Not only all natural biodegradable material, but also it has all these incredible benefits. It's a natural air filtration. It's antifungal. It combats mold, unlike paint, which is plastic and emits VOCs, which is short for volatile organic compounds. They're similar to microplastics. They're these incredibly tiny particles that detach from material over time and leach into the air. They continue to off-gas after you paint a room for up to 3.5 years. And so all the things that paint does, which basically just suffocates your wall, it's this dead layer, lime plaster does the opposite. It turns your home into a living, breathing filtration system. Another thing that is worth mentioning about lime plaster is the beautiful aesthetic. It has this old world charm and appeal to it, this texture, this sensuality, because it's living.
Okay, we're back. It's a little clip from the promo video for the lime plastering course that we have online. And Simon, Arielle did most of the talking here, so it's good. You'll be able to do some of the talking from this point forward. But it was really, I learned a lot. And obviously lime and hemp are like amazing combination of things because they go together. But we really appreciated you bringing that to the Tiny Hemp Home. And so when we put that together, we haven't really been able to, because we've been so busy here in Tennessee at the Haven Village, to really properly promote it. And we wanted to chat a little bit about that because we are putting it out there for the next month until the end of the year at 50% off. So if you want to learn more, if you're listening in and tuning in, you can go to havenearthtradeschool.net, check it out, and use the code THANKFUL and get that 50% off. I'm going to let River kind of take the conversation from here, talking about why plaster, why lime, why natural building, and all of that stuff.
Thanks, Imani. As always, introing really well and really giving props to you guys for what you're doing. It's just been really, I think we met kind of really briefly, and then through a few connections down in Texas, I really kind of learned about the respect that people actually had for you and what you're doing with your art and your craft. And I didn't really know Arielle at the time. And I think it was really significant for, even if that was the only reason we were in Texas, was to have this connection around hemp and around the natural building materials. Because I feel like you're holding a certain point. You guys are holding a certain point. I feel like we're holding a certain point. And I think it's about kind of like bringing these old materials back in a new way. Like how do we re-engage people with these materials that kind of are starting to trend, if you could say that, toward you know, what people want to bring into their lives. You know, they're willing to put out a little bit extra money, willing to go the extra step for a healthy home. And I was kind of, you know, I know a little bit about your background, but I don't think everybody does. And I think it would just be interesting because I think we had like a similar pathway, me coming through the commercial world of architecture and construction and seeing it firsthand, like that industry and what was going into the buildings,
The toxicity.
and just the unhealthiness of the construction environment itself, you know, and what the workers are going through and all of that, and how, like, what was it that actually made you kind of get out of that? Was it, you know, just natural, you flowed out of that, or was it like something happened that really pushed you out of that space and made you look for something else?
I don't know. I guess there's so many questions and there's so many answers with what you just said. You know, it's like I really don't know where to begin. I obviously I started in conventional building, you know, but I have a long family history of plastering, and the plastering kind of evolved and took me into all sorts of different houses. I saw all kinds of different construction as a plasterer. And after the recession, I started doing a lot of eco building, and then that led me into natural building. And actually, you know, be doing when you come in as a plasterer, you're looking at the finished product a lot of times. And a lot of these houses, when they call you in, they're not ready for you yet. They think they're ready for a plasterer, but really there's a whole bunch of building elements that they've overlooked that the house can't be plastered until those things are done. So I ended up being a problem solver for a lot of complicated high-end residential houses, as well as having to plaster them. And then, you know, but in order to warranty a plaster job and say, hey, that's going to hold up and that's not going to crack, you have to know all those things. So I didn't really realize how much is involved in being a good plasterer, but it led me into being a builder. So I was a conventional plasterer first, then I was a natural plasterer, then I was a natural builder, in that order, more or less.
Yeah, I mean, just witnessing your most recent project, like the Cob structure. I mean,
amazing.
It's just been an amazing journey, I think, over the last few months to see the design, you know, kind of seeing your design and the concept and you know, kind of that excitement and that level, you know, because not a lot of builders really have that part of the creativity and the design side of it. And I think for me, it's kind of like this lost kind of
well, it's lost arts.
well, the lost art, but I think like this master builder ideology where, you know, you're not just in this pigeonhole of a certain field, but you have like a bigger perspective of construction. And I think that's what I got through my pathway coming to natural building, was from the design side through the project management side. And obviously you've come through like the trade side, and then kind of grown naturally because of the projects that you've had to take on. And it is really a lot of construction is problem solving, right? I mean,
so much
of the learning curve is like making the mistakes or fixing someone else's mistakes. And you know, and I think that's what we get to a certain point in our lives where we have that ability to bring all them things to the table. And I think we have the same passion around education.
Yeah, and I would say that you guys also are very similar in the way you approach things, like what we talk about, the culture of care. I mean, seeing you multiple times, Simon, on a project, your ability and River's is it parallels as far as problem solving in a way that is in alignment with the values of what we are holding at the forefront to be healthy, natural homes. A lot of people in construction make shortcuts that aren't so healthy. And so it's been really great to see your problem solving in action, because we had some problems that we had to solve making a tiny home that shouldn't have been moved. And I loved watching you guys go through that process. And so that is really a master builder, where you are able to have a multitude of trades or skill sets, right? That's kind of what you're getting to. River,
yeah, I mean, around that ability to teach. I mean,
and teach.
Yeah, because I see you naturally have that, and obviously with Texas Cob, I feel like you guys are moving into that more, like the trainings and the education.
Which is why we're so excited to have you back in Tennessee in the spring. We're working on our sanctuary sauna. We're doing, and you guys have been living off grid. Well, Arielle, we touched on that. That's another thing we have in common around homesteading and this off grid. Moving towards being self-reliant. And so we're going to have you guys come out. You and River going to work on the design for an off-grid hot tub sauna. So that would be great. And I know that you're going to solve all kinds of other problems when you come here too, that we might have. So, and then we'll be doing the Vastu Hempel, and that's going to be plastered. But those are real gifts that you guys have for these times that I think is really significant.
Yeah.
The other thing I'm curious, and I know River has another, but what happens a lot in natural building, and we hear this from a lot of people that are in that, is that the value of natural building and understanding some of the complexities of it, and thinking that it's just how would you say it, River? The differentiation between the kind of regular construction and not, because it hasn't quite landed a place that is valued in the same way, I think.
Yeah, I have my own feelings on that, but what's your feelings about that, and why that let's say the natural building movement hasn't kind of transcended more into regular mainstream construction?
I think a lot of it is supply chain. You can go down to Home Depot or Lowe's pretty much, 20 minutes or, less than an hour in any direction, and you're going to hit a hardware store. You're going to be able to buy these toxic products and then click and snap them together like Legos. These things are all designed to go in, basically one on top of another. And it's a system that everybody has been trained to do. So you have the supply chain, you have trained applicators, and that's the way the system rolls. In order to make natural building something that's viable enough for average people, we have to do the same thing. So I think we should be focused on setting up our yards and building our supply chains in our areas. Finding the soils or the fibers or the aggregates and the minerals and all these things that we need to actually assemble a natural building. And then, obviously putting together a network to where these materials can all be assembled. And we want replicable results. So we want consistent materials that come at the best in abundance at the best prices, that have to come from the least distance. This is the
least amount of packaging.
Yeah, and plastic free packaging. Amen.
Yeah.
So I think if we could assemble the components, we can do this in small groups. And we can network with our neighbors, and our neighbors can also be purchasers. And when you have more purchasers, you're able to buy larger quantities or produce larger quantities.
You create the demand, which kind of goes back to what River was saying earlier, Simon, about the education, because you and Arielle are passionate educators like we are, and that was the kind of motivation behind the course, is that a DIY where people can actually learn from you on the course. It's a very comprehensive step-by-step. I mean, and again, you guys are both such good teachers that with the hemp course and the lime course, which are very compatible, I think we're walking people through that process, and they can begin to take it into their own hands. And then you can have the hands-on application when we do the things in person. But I think really educating people about it. And you guys are also providing resources to materials, right? With the plastering in the same way we are with hemp. That's part of the program that you're rolling out.
But
Yeah, trying
and
to put supply chains.
right, and that's super important. But it's like it's like kind of the food system, right? It's like people just buy what's in the stores unless they have maybe some health crisis, or they find a partner who is just kind of dogmatic on
Simon can
eating
relate to
only
that.
healthy food, and it takes a lot. It takes a whole concerted effort and energy to do that. I think the problem is we've got so used to this kind of consumer culture where everything's kind of out on a plate for us. We don't have to think. It's right there. Yeah, and then we can enjoy our life. And it's really ironic that we're enjoying our toxic, shorter lives because we thought we were getting a better deal. But basically, we just bought into a system that actually really is just about usurping our energy and our money as fast and quickly as possible, rather than our health and the future of our children and real education.
So in the beginning of the video, some people probably come on. I know Arielle mentioned the lime is that non-toxic breathing system that we talk about with our hemp houses. Can you speak to the combination with hemp and lime? I know you've plastered other homes that aren't hemp. That's a newer thing, but maybe speak to that, because that's a big part of our conversation when we're talking about healthy hemp homes. Specifically the lime component, Simon, like how that.
So, no matter what kind of house you're building, if you're going to be putting natural plasters on, lime plaster is probably the king of all plasters. It is, it's been used forever. And all the old buildings that you see, the only reason they're still there is because they used lime. They keep trying to figure out, like, how are these buildings there? It's because the lime is basically a preservative, because it's dispersive. When it gets wet, it pushes out the water like vapor rather than trapping it inside. Water is what destroys houses. So when you have a miraculous mineral that is basically just crushed, cooked limestone, re-emulsified and spread back onto the wall, where it recalcifies and then becomes a limestone again, it's miraculous. Limestone is one of the most abundant resources that we have, and the way that you cook it down and basically cremate it, it's so much easier to do it than the energy requirements to produce lime are much lower than, say, Portland cement.
Right.
And the life expectancy of lime is much further beyond Portland cement. The thermodynamics of the lime are better than Portland cement. All the amazing features that you have that are, air purifying, antimicrobial, antifungal, the benefits you could talk about it for weeks. And you talk about the benefits of Portland cement. In comparison, there are some. Portland cement does offer some great things. I like to drive on a bridge, but I don't want to live in a cement house. Mm-hmm. The fiber, when you mix it with hemp, you end up with basically the best of both worlds. You end up with all of those functions that I just mentioned, but now you have R value. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You have structure. Mm-hmm. You have a lot of really great components. Lime by itself doesn't make a house.
Right. Yeah, you need an aggregate, you need a substrate to put it onto. But it's such a great marriage because there's lime in the hempcrete.
While you guys are talking about that, I'm going to show the Tiny Hemp Home video featuring some of the plastering from Simon and the hemp work from River. So let me just see if I can.
in the tiny home. I think it's when we come to build out our homes, the flexibility that these two materials offer together is really unique, I think, over a lot of other materials that are coming together. And and there's not a sheet of drywall in that whole structure, which I'm like was my main
Really
one of
proud
my
of.
main goals. How was that project for you? I mean, I know we talked about it, but kind of coming to plaster that is a little bit different than a regular house. But it seemed to work out really well. And what was it? You weren't even needing to speed up the drying process. There was like no cracking in there. It was just going together really well.
And it was super hot in Texas.
Yeah,
when
it
you
was
guys
super
did.
hot.
Well, back, I lost you there for a second because I got distracted on the video that she posted, and I think you guys were talking behind it. But yeah, the lime binder in the hempcrete basically enables a natural bond. So you've got like attracts like. So the lime in as the binder is going to obviously basically be the same thing, the same key ingredient in the plaster. So lime is going basically all the way through the wall. So I think it really reacts like it's one component. Rather than being two dissimilar materials that are going to expand and contract differently. It's basically just like one organism, and you have very much a living wall.
So is that why it like went on so smooth, Simon? That makes sense, because I don't remember you saying that, but then just you were worried initially about the heat, but it was like pretty seamless. I mean,
well, you want your lime to dry real slow. It doesn't dry per se. It more, what you want it to do is cure, and you want to keep it wet and not overly wet, but damp and away from air, from a lot of wind and sun. So you saw me when we did the application on your tiny house. We were kind of running around, gauging where the sun's coming down, and I started on the opposite wall after the sun had passed it, and we used the water hose, and I think the sun never beat the wall during the course of the plastering, and then it stayed all night long in the darkness and kind of misted throughout the process. And we were trying to create a slow cure rather than having it dry out immediately. So if we had done the opposite and probably had started in the sun, the sun wasn't out, but if we had started on the wall that the sun was coming up on, it could have been a disaster. So the timing and the being able to read the environment is really critical to doing good plaster work.
Right.
So it kind of goes hand in hand with problem solving. Would you say being a plasterer has made you more patient, Simon, to be a more even better papa?
Maybe so.
He's really good with cleaning up the diapers.
I am. Yeah.
They're real clean.
I've been cleaning
motion.
A lot of cloth diapers.
Yes. One question somebody was just asking is clay as a binder. So I don't know if they're referring to cob. Maybe you can touch on cob, because you guys do a lot of cobbing. You'll be coming out and doing a cob workshop.
Clay plaster, or clay as a binder, or clay as a building material, is extremely viable. And clay is another option for hempcrete. You can put a clay plaster over hempcrete. I don't think I've seen it done, but I'm sure it has. I don't think I've done it, but I see no reason why you couldn't clay plaster directly over the hempcrete. We incorporate all sorts of
schedule. For sure.
We should do it. If it's never been done before, Simon, we should definitely do it. I'm sure
it's being done, but I think
it's definitely been done. I just haven't done one.
Well, we have plenty of clay here in Tennessee.
Yeah. It's beautiful clay.
Yeah. We're gonna have piles of clay ready for you when you come.
Yeah.
I
the other
can't
thing
wait.
the other thing I really wanted to bring up, Simon, and it's my opportunity to say, like, talk a bit more about this, is this kind of revival of people wanting to get back into building their own homes, about growing their own food. And I think we talked about it before. It's like we want to be really careful to not just have, the problem is, I think, with the natural building spaces being that people just, building in general, let's say, is people just hacking it. Thinking it's easy, just do whatever, it'll be fine. But if we put that educational piece in place, do you think people can start building their own homes again? Do you see that, it's not just about having the materials there, it's also about building our own homes? Or is this more about educating existing contractors, which is kind of what we're looking toward, is how do we educate existing contractors and people coming into the construction space? And do you see that being something that we can support and help educate people around enough to kind of transition people into that, being more DIY?
Yeah, I mean, I have a kind of a chip on my shoulder for DIY, I guess, but not in a complete sense. Only on, like, it's. I feel like people should practice at home and then perform on stage. So you don't want to, like, go and try a DIY that you've never done before when you're working for someone else and someone else's home, because you don't want them to be your guinea pig. But then again, where do you do it? So, like, maybe at your own house, or do your DIYs on a very small scale, a comfortable scale, and try things on the backs of your houses and stuff like that, not by the front door, things like that. So I have a really calculated technique for doing DIY. Obviously, I've dipped my toes into a lot of water, and I didn't have experience on. I mean, at one point, I didn't have experience at any of it. So, kind of, I spend a lot of time at my workshop doing R&D, just mixing strange materials together and seeing what happens. I throw a lot of spaghetti at the wall, and I feel like making samples and bird houses and I make these, you've seen me, I make these little 2-scale models of the Cob house before I build one, so you can see how the components go together. Yeah,
I think you again are really. Oh, sorry, Simon. Well, I just think you guys are similar in this, the aesthetic and the quality coming from maybe that background. But I really appreciate that both of you bring that to the table as far as encouraging people to learn and be DIY and giving these opportunities for education and hands-on learning, but also really the quality of what you're putting out there. Both of you have that very same kind of quality. The way that you do your work, you are very, have a certain thing, and River is the same exact way. And I think that this industry, the natural building industry, benefits from having both of you setting that standard. There's just literally, as you're setting a standard, I think. And I think that's really relevant. I mean, that's what we're looking to do with the residents here at Haven Village, is create an experience, because people are having an experience with that too, right? It's their impression of it. So
yeah, there's definitely a bunch of people in the natural building space who are running workshops and teaching and probably shouldn't be, because their quality standards are really I could say possibly damaging to the industry in some ways. Have you seen a lot of that? Has it improved over the years, or is it getting worse?
It's getting worse.
Really?
Yeah.
Good.
I've been called out for several consultations just in the last month or two, and people call me up and they're like, "Hey, somebody started my job. Can you come tell me how to finish it?" And then I show up and I'm like, "What happened?" It's like, oh gosh, uh,
Not good.
not good.
Mhm.
But somebody like what you were asking about being able to DIY a house, it's absolutely possible. You have to have a lot of fortitude, and there's what I call stackable skills, which is, you're not just gonna read one book and know how to build a house, but
Right.
if good thing about hempcrete is there's very few components. It's a much simpler house to build
So
than
if
even.
you were to tell someone to build a house, you would say build a hemp house, Simon?
Well, it depends on where you're living and what your budget is. But if I was gonna build one house and I was gonna live in it for my whole life, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's definitely something about, I think what I feel about hempcrete right now, and just hemp coming out into the mainstream over the last couple of years. In the US, it's been more in the mainstream in Europe for a while, but things don't really take off in Europe like they do in the US. Like when something takes off here, it goes crazy. They just eat it up. Everyone's opening up their dispensaries or their block making factories. It's going to go kind of crazy. Um, and for me, coming from the conventional world of construction, hempcrete seems to provide one of the more seamless ways for natural building materials to get into the mainstream, because it's, you can control the processing of it, you can control the product that comes, and you can bag it up. It's not heavy. It's not like shipping a super sack of earth. Um, it's a product that could be on the shelf. Lime is already out there. You can find the lime at a lot of the box hardware stores already. So we know there's a lot of lime out there, and you could probably source it locally, like you're saying, sort out your supply chain. And then once there's a demand, then the processing and the farming can start to kind of parallel the need and the consumer demand, let's say. Whereas I found a lot of like I did the earth bag house in Turkey, and then you've done a lot of cob. It's super labor intensive, and it's hard to get people to do that kind of work. And people don't want it's hard to find people who want to work, let alone people who want to do that heavy work. It's really, it's kind of heavy on the body. I definitely feel hempcrete's able to straddle that and touch a lot of the natural building space, because I see a marriage between cob and hemp, and clay and hemp. And like you said, it's not just what's out there now, but there's a lot of opportunities for experimentation. And definitely want to get you more involved in the whole process of the hemp construction, because I feel like once you'll get it like super quick, you know what I mean? And like I think it's going to be something in your tool belt that's going to expand your palette as an artist, because essentially you're an artist, you're an artisan, a craftsperson, who's bringing that back. And I think that's what we want these people. I see that we're creating a new career pathway for a lot of the younger ones. But people aren't interested in break their back anymore. They want to retire when they're 30. The young ones now, they think they're gonna hit a Bitcoin million or something. But
yeah, that is definitely what we hear a lot for that. Simon, any last comments? I know you guys got a lot going on there, so we appreciate you taking the time, but we wanted to really put the course out there, the Lime Plaster course, offering it for the 50% off for the rest of 2023. And then we'll loop around with you guys coming back to Tennessee in the spring. I'll be having the dates coming out soon for the spring semester for the Haven Earth Trade School. But any last comments that you want to share?
Yeah, well, the lime plaster course is, I think it's pretty beneficial, because you've got there's a lot of disinformation on the internet, and it's really kind of mystified, where there's the lime plaster techniques and the applications and the mixing, all these things are really becoming lost to time. They're not teaching this stuff anymore, and we really need to get more people out there learning these skills. And we need to get people that can plaster their own houses. It's lime plaster it's the second most important component on a hempcrete house, on a cob house, on an adobe house. All of these natural materials really require the lime plaster. So if we're going to stop using these synthetic products and we're going to start using natural components, we need natural coatings for these buildings. And so, it was an awesome experience putting this lime plaster course together with you guys. And I sat back and watched it actually recently, and I was like, yeah, this is pretty good.
You're natural, Simon.
That's for sure.
I really came out better than I had ever anticipated. And I think there's a lot of good stuff in there, a lot of secrets, a lot of stuff that you would have to take an apprenticeship to learn. And hopefully, from the people that I've spoken to so far that have taken the course, I've heard nothing but good things. And I've actually got some more testimonials to give you guys.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. We'll get those on once the winter comes and we're not so busy.
Yeah, same thing here.
You guys did a great job. And I know Arielle's not on here, but she also is so complimentary to the mission of what you guys are trying to do there with Texas Cob and the Realness Preserve, that there's that appreciation and passion for natural materials that she has is just extended through and being able to get the word out. We're taking the work that you guys are doing to the next level because it really does need to get out there. And there isn't a lot of information on how to do these processes, hemp building and lime plaster correctly. That's why we're creating the courses, is because there's nothing out there. And do it with people like you and River, who are master builders, who are experts that actually really know what you're doing and have those kind of secrets and tips to give to people, because it's not like it's complicated, but if you don't know that information, it can be disastrous. So it's so important.
And I just want to say one thing. My background as an architect, as you know, Simon, and I didn't even know really much about construction in the sense of me actually being able to do it. I'd had a house, I'd changed some cabinets and sanded the floor and put up some shelves. But it was when I went to South Africa in 2018, after kind of a rude awakening to the world I was in the construction world. I was really nervous to go there, to this earth bag and aircrete building workshop. But within that first week of the workshop, I was so empowered, and it shifted so much for me and led me down another pathway. And I would never have known really where it was going to lead to in a lot of respects. And I think that's the thing with people. They're like, I don't know, how is a lime plaster course going to help me, or how is a hemp building course going to help me? It's like, it's actually about committing to a new direction. And
a catalyst.
Yeah, it's like catalyst to be empowered. It's a baby crying in the background. And I think people will get inspired. I think that's what it's about, is like giving people that inspiration to feel empowered, that they can start on that journey. It's not just one plaster course or one hempcrete course. It's a commitment to yourself and to the living a more natural life.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Simon, for taking the time from your family to be with us, and we miss you guys so much, and we can't wait to be together again and to meet this little soul in person. So exciting. And we're really proud and honored to have you guys on the platform. We're super selective about the topics that we cover, and so having your lime plaster on there is such an addition to the work that we've been putting up there. So give our love to Arielle, and we hope to see you guys soon.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Simon. Thanks, brother.
Bye bye.